this lesson, you will learn how to add a patch pocket. We will cover the following: basic pattern drafting and modification tools, adding a patch pocket to the garment, creating different styling variations for a garment. Refer to the specification sheet for patch pocket measurements. To begin, we need to insert a rectangle. To insert a rectangle of a specific measurement, click on the 2D window. A measurement dialog box is displayed. The measurements are linked, so we click here to unlink them. The measurements to insert are 9.75 centimeters by 10.3 centimeters. Click Insert. Next, we want to decrease the width of the bottom edge. To do so, we click on the edge using the Select tool. Measurements for the length of the edge are displayed in the 2D window. This length is also visible in the context view under the Transformation section. We enable Edit Points. We can edit the length of an edge through the context view, or we can click on the displayed measurement and type in the desired value. Note that in VStitcher, fields behave as calculators. For example, if we need to reduce this edge by 1.5 centimeters, we can input minus 1.5 next to the measurement and click Enter. It is automatically calculated and the edge length is updated accordingly. Next, we add a point along the center of this edge and drop it by 1.5 centimeters. Use the pen tool to add intermediate points along a line. To do this, the Edit Points mode must be enabled. We enable Snap to Center. When we hover the pen tool over the edge, it snaps to the center of the edge. Click to add a point. We need to convert this point to a corner point. Now with the Select tool, we click on the new point and move it down by 1.5 centimeters. In the context view, we use the Move option under Transformation. We move this point down along the Y-axis, so we input 1.5 in the Y field. Note that in VStitcher, the Y-axis behaves differently from other software. Adding a negative value to the Y field moves the selected element up. The X-axis behavior is similar to other software. In other words, a positive value moves the element selected to the right, while a negative value moves the element selected to the left. The pocket bag is complete. Now we want to stitch the pocket bag to the bodice. First, we need internal lines on the bodice to stitch to. We place the pocket bag on the bodice pattern, and in the context view, we select Attach. The values for the pocket position on the bodice are highlighted in the 2D window with red and blue. According to the specification sheet, we should measure the distance from the highest point shoulder to the top of the pocket. Using the cursor, we click and drag one blue point to the top of the pattern and another to the HPS of the garment. It should measure 20.5 centimeters. To edit the measurement, we edit the value in the Position Y field in the context view. Next, the pocket should be 3.5 centimeters from the front edge. So we adjust the red points to measure from the top point of the pocket. Again, we edit the values within the Position X field in the context view. This is the correct pocket position. We click on the pocket pattern and detach it. Next, we select Line in the context view. This is a quick way to select all the edges along the pocket pattern. Now we click Trace as Internal Line. Move the pocket pattern to see the internal lines. Next, we stitch the internal lines to the pocket patterns. Pause the lesson here. Complete the drafting of the pocket bag and trace the internal line on the bodice pattern. Now for the pocket flap, try to apply the same process to create the flap pattern and trace the internal line of the flap on the bodice pattern. We would like to present a slightly different way to create the flap. We start by inserting a rectangle that is 11 by 5.2 centimeters. Next, we repeat the process to add a center point along the bottom edge. Here, instead of adjusting the middle points, we want to adjust the points on the side. When we click on the corner point, the edge measurement is displayed. Click on the measurement and type -1.5 after the value, then click Enter. Note that only the point we selected moves up by 1.5 centimeters. If we were to click the edge and then adjust the measurement, both the top and bottom point would move to shorten the edge. We repeat the same steps for the other side. Now the flap pattern is ready. The next step is to attach the pattern onto the bodice and ensure the measurements are as stated in the specification sheet. We use the same method we used for the pocket bag. We only need to trace the top edge to the bodice patterns. We detach the pattern from the bodice. Next, we add the patterns into the torso cluster in the Arrange mode. We have not created X symmetry. Another quick way to create the symmetrical patterns is to right-click the pattern in the Arrange mode and then select X symmetry. This creates the X symmetrical pattern and automatically adds it to the symmetrical cluster. We do the same action for the pocket flap. When we are in Select mode, we must adjust the position of the patterns in the 2D window. Let's select all 4 patterns and then uncheck Use in 3D. We stitch the patterns to the bodice in the 2D window. Before we dress the garment, we need to add buttons to the pocket bag and flap. Use the Insert Point tool to add a point on the pocket flap. The point should be 2 centimeters above the middle point along the bottom edges. We want the 2 patterns to overlap in the 2D window. To align the patterns correctly, we use the Pen tool to add intermediate points to the top edges of the patterns. Enable Snap to Point and snap the 2 center points together. On the bodice patterns, the flap is positioned 1 centimeter above the pocket flap. So we select the pocket flap in the context view. We type -1 in the Y move field. We need to enable the textures and ensure that the flap pattern is above the pocket bag. To do so, we adjust the order in the context view by clicking on this arrow. Use the Assign tool to assign the button to the internal point we added previously. Click the same point twice. This assigns the button and buttonhole automatically to both the flap and the bag patterns. Note that this is an alternative way to assign a smart button. VStitcher automatically assigns the buttonhole to the pattern that is on top, and the button is assigned automatically to the pattern that is below it. VStitcher also automatically adjusts the 3D layer of the flap to be above the pocket bag, but it's important to check that the 3D layers are accurate. The pocket bag should be a layer higher than the bodice, so we adjust it to be layer 3 and the flap layer 4. Pause the lesson here and repeat the same steps for the other side of the pocket bag and flap. Lastly, we simulate the pocket. Before we do that, we need to save a snapshot of the garment without the pocket. Create a manual snapshot and give it the name Without Pockets. Now enable Use in 3D for the pocket patterns. Then simulate the pockets. Note that we had Auto Lock enabled. We need to disable Auto Lock. We want the garment to be unlocked. To remove all the styling on the garment, click on the hamburger icon in the Advanced Styling section, then Clear Styling. We allow the garment to simulate for a few moments. Now we can save a snapshot and name it With Pockets. When we load the Snapshot Resources pane, the saved snapshots are displayed. We can use the snapshots to create styling variations for the garment. In this case, we have two variations, with pocket and without pocket. We may add more variations. For example, we can add a no sleeve variation. Great job! We have completed the construction of the jacket. We highly encourage you to analyze and review the lessons before you start the next section. Find a list of tools used for this section in the next lesson. For more information, refer to the Browseware Help Center.